Okay, so we just watched the first three episodes of Wandavision on Disney Plus.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's interesting. It's very different from
Yeah.
our typical Marvel format.
Yeah, you don't have like Marvel action all the time type of thing.
Right.
This one seems more like very almost like story based, I guess you can say.
Yeah. Yeah,
You're
there's
trying to figure out what's
definitely
going on.
yeah, it's a big mystery. You don't really know what's going on. People that don't know anything about the show, I'm sure most of our viewers will at least be aware of it, but it kind of is running on a format where it is centered around sitcoms of different eras, like different each episode's like a different decade.
Yeah.
So, like the first episode was Dick Van Dyke, and it was like in the 1950s, and then episode two was very much Bewitched, and it was the 60s, and then 70s was the third one. It was like a Brady Bunch type thing,
Yeah, definitely Brady Bunch.
and they put a lot of detail into that. So if you're fans of those shows, I'm sure you'll pick up like little nuances. They changed the way the house looks in each episode to make it match the home in those shows, like all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And like I could see where some people maybe don't care about that or are like mad because it's putting too much focus on that. But I think if you were aware of those shows, that adds kind of like an extra layer of Easter eggs or whatever beyond the Marvel ones that are scattered throughout.
Yeah.
And like I don't know like about you, but like when I was a kid, I did watch these kind of things because you had like Nick at Night and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, same here. I did watch a lot of sitcom when I was younger.
right, like I remember Brady Bunch and especially Bewitched. I do remember watching that a lot.
Mhm.
So like that fits this format perfectly. And people that are complaining about that, that's the front. Like that's not what the show's really about. It's just like that's the fake world or whatever that's going on. And then
Yeah, which you definitely see a little bit, definitely a big glimpse of it on the third episode.
right. Yeah, each episode obviously something is off. It's almost like the Matrix. There's like a little
Yeah.
glitch or something each time. And the first episode pretty much runs like a standard sitcom from the 1950s until the very end of the episode.
Yeah.
Things start to unravel. And then the second episode, you get a little bit more of that. It's like maybe the last, what would you say, like the last 3 minutes or
Yeah, it
something.
had the last 3 minutes there, and then like it was kind of like in the middle where it had the that
The,
radio was kind of going off.
oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's like a radio signal that is like, who's doing this to you, Wanda, or something. And so somebody's trying to
Yeah, trying to
break through.
talk to her, I guess.
Yeah.
Since it's black and white in the first episodes, you can see hints of color every so often, and
Yeah, they're kind of doing that. I'm not sure what's going on with that. Like, I don't know if those are things that aren't part of that world.
yeah, because I had that helicopter in the one, and it's like,
Yeah, and the helicopter had the sword logo on it.
yeah,
And she obviously was noticing it as something outside of the setting. Each episode, like we said, gets a little bit more. Like the third episode, half the episode is almost dedicated to like the unraveling of the fantasy world or whatever.
yeah, because there was like that one scene. It was like kind of like it's a very jarring cut because actually talking about. I forgot what they were talking about. That so obviously it was like something about was he saying something about leaving or something like that, and then it was like
It was Vision was saying something like there's something wrong with
yeah, there's something. Oh yeah, there's something
like the
wrong, and then it was a
world, like
very
it's
jar.
yeah, and then he just cuts back to before he said that.
Yeah, and then they go on from there back to the sitcom type of
Right. So it's like people
format.
people are figuring out that they're not real or they're part of some kind of program or something, and then whatever that happens, Wanda like snaps it back. So it's like she's trying to live in her own little fantasy world or something.
Yeah,
And whenever something weird happens, she's like, there's literally a part in episode two where like a beekeeper comes up out of like a manhole in the street somewhere, which is obviously not part of the typical program.
yeah,
She literally is just like no, and it just reverts back to what was happening before that.
yeah.
So we get that, and then episode 3, she has twins, which is the characters of, I think, was that Wiccan and Speed, which are
Yeah.
their kids in the comics. So those characters are in this show. It's possible that that's the reason why this is happening in the first place, is somebody wants to steal her children or something. I mean, who knows what the deal is.
Yeah.
Because she could have been, I guess one possibility is that she was pregnant after, like, during the events of Endgame. And
Yeah, because they don't like really talk about too much, but yeah, it could
right, because they
possibly.
were living together. Because her and Vision were living together, like in Scotland or something, in Infinity War.
Yeah.
So it's possible that some events occurred or something, and she had kids. She had those 2 kids, and then they were taken away from her or something. Because that's actually part of the storyline of House of M, which I guess is the storyline that this is primarily based on. Is that Wanda creates like an alternate reality to cope with the grief of losing her children. So that could be what's going on here, coupled also with Vision's death in Infinity War.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very interesting, I think. Some people obviously aren't as enamored with it, but
Yeah.
it I think it's a show that you have to. I don't think you can fairly judge this show until the season is over.
Yeah, I think you have to probably wait until the season's over just to kind of look back on the whole every episode or something.
Plus, there's like a ton of Easter eggs, and I only know a few of them, but I'm sure if you look at the backgrounds, if you're like a massive Marvel fan, I'm sure you're picking up all kinds of clues and stuff that we're not.
Yeah, like that something probably about that rabbit. I'm sure that's an Easter
Yeah,
egg from
there's some
something.
sure that's something. Character names are probably something. Um, some of the stuff in the commercials are definitely. I mean, there's like obvious ones like
Oh yeah.
Dark with the toaster and the Strucker watch, which is a reference to that Baron von Strucker guy that was played by Thomas Kretschmann in the movies. He was actually a guy that was involved in, if not the creation of Wanda and Quicksilver, but he was the one that was like containing them in the cells or something, like when we first saw those characters.
Yeah.
So, and that's another thing too. We get a reference to Quicksilver again for like the
Finally.
first time in like 10
Yeah.
years.
Someone finally acknowledged it.
He just like died in a hail of bullets and Age of Ultron, and like no one ever cared again after that.
Yeah, they're like, who cares?
Like even Wanda never mentions it. So like I thought that was always weird. So it's kind of cool that they're at least addressing that happened.
Yeah, they even said, "Oh, he was killed by Ultron." Wasn't he?
Right.
Like,
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see who these characters are. There's a lot of references to Sword, which is kind of like the in the comics, it's the like Shield exists to defend the Earth, and then from threats that are within the Earth, and Sword is supposed to defend it from extraterrestrial threats. But I think in this context, Sword is just replacing Shield.
yeah, it kind of looks like it because you don't really see it. Everything's about that sword now.
Right, because I think Sword is the new Shield in the MCU. Because Shield was compromised and
Yeah, by Hydra.
right in Winter Soldier or whatever. So yeah, so and there's a lot of Hydra references.
Yeah, there's a ton of Hydra references everywhere.
So Hydra's involved, Shield's involved, possibly AIM or whatever that one organization is, because the beekeeper costume looks like they're kind of hazmat suits that they wear.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of things going on. Obviously, we're only in episode 3 of a 9-episode show, so we can't really do much but speculate at this point.
Yeah, especially since we're going in the 80s here. That's what I say. I'm kind of wondering if they're gonna do some sort of. When we get to the 90s, we'll be like Full House.
probably
The Full House sitcom.
it would be funny if they reference like with Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen.
Yeah.
because
Which
Elizabeth
actually,
is their sister. So
that could possibly, because you have the twins. The two kids are twins.
yeah,
That's probably what's gonna be. That'll be
that
the '90s.
that would be funny. But yeah, there's I my prediction is there's 2 more episodes of this format where you're going to be doing the sitcom thing. And then one will be the 80s, the next one will be the 90s, and then after that, I don't feel like there's a strong enough nostalgia for 2000s shows. Plus that format kind of died out with the exception of
Yeah.
like a couple shows.
And anyways, you get to that more. I think the 2000s are a little bit more risky in terms of their content. It wasn't more like kids friendly, I guess you can say. So you had
Right.
like Two and a Half Men, which is like,
Yeah, it gets kind of raunchy with the humor.
yeah, you get more raunchy stuff instead of
Yeah, and I don't think they're
like the
gonna.
old style.
Right, like I said, also I don't think there's that much nostalgia for that, not yet.
Yeah, not yet, anyways.
So I think it's gonna stop at the '90s because that's kind of where nostalgia stops at this point in time. There's usually like a 30-year thing for nostalgia.
Yeah.
So it's like because we have nostalgia for the '80s now, big time. But in the '80s, it was all about the '50s. Like if you look at the movies that were being remade and all that kind of stuff, they're always remaking 1950s movies.
Yeah, because a lot of those directors were getting the 30s. They were like in their 30s, so they were starting to make movies
Right. Yeah.
based on that.
That's basically what that is. Pretty much is like you're making movies based on the things that you grew up watching.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I think it's going to stop at the '90s, and then from that point on, who knows what the show becomes? Because that's like
Yeah.
the halfway point.
I'm thinking they probably will start addressing like Doctor Strange. Because that's like, this is supposed to lead up to that, right? That's like
Right.
what this is. Yeah, it's supposed to like lead up into the universe or the multiverse of madness.
Yeah, something happens in this show that creates the multiverse, which we're kind of
Yeah.
seeing that because I think Wanda's like in an alternate Earth or something.
Yeah, doing her own thing, I guess.
Created this entire reality. And then if it gets compromised, it could cause like a splinter that affects all realities or something.
Yeah.
So it's like it's seemingly like inconsequential at this point, but it could easily become something that
Yeah, be very unstable, which that's what we're seeing. It's very unstable.
right, and it could affect everything in the end. And that's where you're definitely going to see it in Multiverse of Madness. Maybe Spider-Man, if the rumors are correct about the multiverse and multiple Spider-Mans and like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you'll have Bully Maguire showing up.
Bully Maguire. I'm almost even without the multiple Spider-Mans, I can almost
Yeah.
that's what's happening because we have confirmation that you're getting Electro from
Yeah, from the
Spider-Man.
and also Doctor Octopus
Yeah.
from the original Sam
Right.
Raimi ones.
And it also explains why J. Jonah Jameson's the same guy.
Yeah.
So it's like we already got a hint of that with him. He may have actually been the beginning of the multiverse.
He's the Watcher or whatever. Yeah, Stanley.
Jameson is the Watcher.
Yes.
But I think personally, I think it's a very interesting concept.
Yeah, this show is. I'm actually enjoying it quite a bit because it's so much different than the other ones that it's kind of like. Just from that alone, I think it's like worth a watch. But I don't know.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that, and I feel like the majority of viewers also agree with that. It's just that there's like a very vocal minority that aren't getting it.
Yeah, they're like, oh, where's my land crashing another land and destroying cities?
Yes, I mean, there's a certain group of the population that's just not getting it, and then there's a certain group that does get it, and they just don't care. It's just not for them, and I mean,
Yeah.
that's fine. I mean, you
Yeah.
don't have to like everything, but yeah, I do think you should give it a chance, and I feel like you have to watch it to the end to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So it's like I don't think we can give this a fair rating until the season finale or something.
Yes.
All right. So I mean, is there anything else you wanted to say about this?
No, that's pretty much it.
All right. So I think we're gonna wrap it up for our review for the first 3 episodes, and as we did with Mandalorian, I'm sure this will be a weekly segment.
Yeah.
So we'll see you next week for episode 4. Okay, see you.
See ya.